Gentlemen, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen and ladies? This is the highly anticipated show. I'm pretty sure y'all are going to enjoy this for the first time on my channel, which I've been wanting to do for a very long time. Is that I got some police officers together that are going to talk to you guys, and we're going to explain and go through all of these scenarios that people have been begging to hear from when it comes to law enforcement. You know, a lot of people out here running their mouth about stuff and they have no idea about policing. They know nothing about what they're talking about. And policing is a very nuanced career. It's a very nuanced calling that a lot of people are afraid to do, but only a few, I think, are chosen by God to do these things. So I got a few of my brothers in. I'm gonna bring them in 1 second. Y'all make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure you comment. Make sure you support. I really want this to be a well-watched live stream, because I think we're going to talk about and get into a lot of incredible points. So without further ado, let me bring in my panel. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, we got my boy Nate Sylvester at the top. We got Mike the Cop at the bottom, whatever y'all looking at, whichever way it is. And then we got my boy Ryan, Breaking Barriers United. Let me say a quick synopsis about each person and why they mean so much to me. Nate, y'all should know Nate. He made a viral video just clowning LeBron James, embarrassing him pretty much. And then, you know, of course, the police, you know, little nanny state, they got in their feelings about it, and they decided to relieve him of his duties on the police department. You got Mike the Cop. Mike the Cop been doing it. He's a legend. He's been doing it for a long time. Before memes were memes, before these videos, people were making videos, Mike the Cop been doing it. Ryan is somebody new that I saw. My wife followed him for a while, and she was like, man, you got to check this guy out. You know, he's breaking down policing in America and doing it succinctly, doing it with good quality videos. So I appreciate all of you guys. So let's start with this. You know, Nate, how did you become a cop, man? Like, did you always want to be a police officer, or was it something that was a childhood dream, or did you just fall into it?
So it was a childhood dream in the beginning. I mean, when I was a real young kid, you know, I saw the cops on TV and thought, wow, you know, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And of course, my mom, you know, in her better wisdom, you know, always told me, like, you don't want to be a cop. You just don't, you know. And if I would have listened, you know, maybe life would have turned out a little differently. And that fantasy kind of went away for a long time. But when I was in my mid-20s, I was approached by a police officer who worked for the Twin Falls Police Department. She told me that they were hiring. The job I had at the time wasn't a real fulfilling job, and so I thought, well, what the heck, I'll go apply. And went and applied, kept getting moved up through the hiring process during each step, and then eventually they offered me the position. And you know, during that time, I'm like, well, why am I doing this? You know what? First of all, it was an adventure, right? It was something that was going to sort of break me out of the mundane, right? The minutia of everyday life. And but I also wanted to do my part to make my community safe, so that I could raise my family, you know, in a safe community.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, I think a lot of us end up getting into that position where it's like, you know, this is the ultimate call in our life. So now it's time to step up and get the job done. Let's see, Mike, you know, how did you start policing, man?
I got into it later in life. I didn't start till I was like 33. And
you were old, man. You're old in police years.
I feel every bit of it. It's like, yeah, man, I had been sort of like in the business world, raising a family, all that good stuff. And I was raised around first responders. Like when I was a really little kid, my dad was a dispatcher for Champaign-Urbana in the fire department. So like from the very earliest times, I had been exposed to, you know, fire ferries and all that sort of things. And then I developed into like wanting to be a real man, wanted to be a cop. So it was always in the back of my mind, you know. So, but when I got married and started having kids, you know, running a business or doing this, that, or the other thing, it just was like never the right time. And then it was always something in the back of my mind. And then when my brother became a cop, then I saw like how much he loved it. We had really similar personalities. One of my businesses during the recession, like I lost some big accounts, and I was like, you know what? Now's the time to just go for it. And I'm so glad that I did. It was one of a defining experience of my life, that 11 years. So.
Awesome, man. That's great to hear. Ryan, what's your tale, man?
So I'm a little different. The short version is
That's an
I couldn't stand
understatement.
cops.
So that's an understatement.
So man, I didn't like cops at all. I had some bad experiences with them in my neighborhood. A few of them just kind of harassing me for no reason, just like little petty stuff. But then as a young lad, I saw my uncle pulled over a few times, said he fit the description of armed robbery suspect, and then kicked loose. And then they didn't really give no explanation. And so, you couple that with being a black man, which it ain't popular to like police. I mean, it ain't like other people where it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna grow up and be a police officer, just not like that. So it was easy for me not to like it. So then fast forward, I grew up and then went to college to play football at UNLV in Vegas. And once I played there, I thought I was going to leave Vegas and just become the entrepreneur that I wanted to be until my wife got pregnant with our first child. And she was like, look, bro, like these bills is coming in and your pay ain't.
They coming in hot and heavy, man.
So like I prayed about it. I'm a godly man. I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ. And so I was like, if it's God's will, it will be. If it's not, it's not. So when I prayed that prayer, man, the doors flew open. And that's when I became a police officer. And when that happened, it was like this light bulb just went off. Like all these things that I used to say about police or whatever, they were just starting to be flipped. Like, man, this is not what I thought it was. But at the same time, now that I was in the position as a police officer, I was able to understand things from a different perspective and understand our flaws. So like any profession, there are flaws. And so I think that's when I started this organization about 5-6 years ago that was aimed at going out there, showing what law enforcement is really about, but then also trying to be honest about our flaws that we have.
Oh, perfect, man. That's good. That kind of good segue into me being a police officer. When I was growing up, I didn't really like the police. Of course, it was just brainwashed into me that they are all racist white people, and every time you get pulled over, they pulled me over because I'm black. You know what I'm saying? I said that. I used to say that. There was a cop pulled me over. I was in a Mustang, had the drop top, and I had an afro. He pulled me over for some legitimate stuff. And I'm like, oh, he don't want to see a brother, riding in a nice car. And then I realized when I became a cop that the cops make enough money to buy a little Mustang. That's not a big significant purchase. You know what I'm saying? So, but I didn't like police officers. I got arrested when I was 8 years old for smoking weed in a vacant house with my older cousins. We went to the juvenile detention center and all of that stuff. And, they didn't treat us wrong, but it was traumatizing. They came into the house, because they got a report of people, in a vacant house, potentially doing whatever. And, people are doing all kinds of stuff in a vacant house. And y'all know what I'm talking about. We are
the boys.
Huh?
The boys.
Yeah. So they kicked in the door, man. They had guns on us. They had shotguns, man. It was crazy. But leading to a similar situation to Ryan is that when I was in the 2010 NFL draft and I didn't get drafted, a mentor of mine told me, hey, man, you need to make a decision. Like, you can't keep chasing a dream if it's not yielding results. And so I applied for everything in the city. The police department happened to be one. When they called me back, I said, man, I have no idea what I'm doing. I need to go do a ride along or something and figure out, do I really want to do this? You know what I mean? The pay looks good. The little $46,000 a year and the retirement and medical. I was like, and at the time, my job was I was making $8 an hour working for Verizon Wireless premium retailer. And so, that's the fake Verizon that, they're not even connected. So, but anyway, man, they called me back. I did a ride along. I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away that Officer Sean Payne, which he's in my book. I know, Nate, you got a book out, or you got a book that's coming out, but Officer Sean Payne just blew me away. I thought the guy was incredible hero. I became a police officer shortly after that, man. And I loved, let me not lie, I loved a lot of the job. I hated the paperwork, man. So I want to start with that. I want to go around the table. What's the biggest thing that you could not stand about being a police officer? I can start with you, Nate.
Oh boy, what I couldn't stand about being a police officer. Where do I start? I'm with you. The paperwork was, especially as a detective. I was a detective for about 6 years, and I mean, it's just mountains of paperwork. So that got a little tedious. I'd rather be out. I mean, it's necessary, but I'd rather be out interviewing suspects, hitting the streets, that sort of thing. But the paperwork's necessary, but it's not fun.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
Man, I think what bothered me the most was spineless administration type folk that were more interested in how many tickets you wrote and how your uniform looked and how many bad guys you actually caught, or how many people you actually helped, in a given shift or a given week or period of time or whatever else. These evaluations that are like, well, you did so many warnings, you need to up the number of violations you're actually citing and all that other nonsense. That stuff just always drove me nuts. I'm like, man, we're here. What are we here for? And it seemed like a lot of guys would go for patrol, and it's like that switch flipped, man, when they got them stripes or bars or whatever. And I'm like, man, you were just here last year complaining when you were the union president. I'm like, what happened here? Like that kind of thing where like that whole dynamic was really bothersome. How I didn't realize how political policing can be from the top down, and that stuff always just bothered me. I mean, I put it in perspective, had some good mentors that said, man, you just got to go do your job. You can't control what other people do. You can't control what happens at the courthouse. You can't control what happens in the voting booth. You can control you on this shift or how you conduct yourself, focus on that. So, I mean, that helped, keep me motivated for my own reasons, but it was always like this annoying thing on the side.
Yeah, I like that, man. That's similar to how I figured it out. But Crystal David said, Mike the cop looked like a firefighter. Oh man.
Hey, true story. I was a firefighter. My first department in Michigan for public safety. So I passed both. I can do both. Man. Get you a man that can do it all.
We knew you had some second responder in you, man.
I drive a big red truck and I have flames in the back, and I go where angels fear to tread and all that nonsense, man.
That's funny, man. My dad retired as a fire chief, so I grew up in a firefighter household. Ryan, how about you, man? What's your moment of disdain for policing?
If I'm being honest and just being transparent, I honestly just think, cops want to hold us to some bad culture that we have. There's a lot of good culture that we have. There's a lot of old school methods that we need, but I think we also have some bad culture. And the reason I say that is because when I first started this organization, I was looked upon as, man, you don't even know your day job yet, man. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And I almost felt like I took more heat from people within the profession than I did outside the profession. Now, knowing the culture, I know a lot of it wasn't necessarily towards me. It was more so like, no, the standard way of thinking is you need to do your day job 5 years first before you think about doing anything. And don't get me wrong, I just did a podcast about this. It has its place. Like, there is a place for experience and time on in this field in order for you to understand certain things and the way we do them. But at the same time, don't shun me when I'm actually trying to help us out. Like I got 3 kids, 2 boys that love cops. Why would I not want my kids to like cops their whole life, as opposed to when they are thrown out into the world as a teenager and they start to hear all this stuff that cops are terrible. So, my grandfather always told me when I was younger, like he was like, hey, Ryan, when you go into a room, when you walk out of it, you better make sure that room is better than what it was when you walked in. And so I kind of take that same philosophy. And so at the end of the day, man, I mean, Tatum, you're a former athlete like myself. I still got that competitive drive. And so I'm just like, man, don't be mad just because I'm out here trying to do my thing. Like, if you're going to throw salt, that's cool. But just make sure there's validity behind the salt that you throw. So I think that's kind of been my biggest holdup, is that, I feel like at times it's getting better, but at times it's like crabs in a bucket, man. Like, I'm trying to help the cause, but yeah, you're trying to pull me back.
Yeah, I agree, man. I had some problems with that too. The funny thing is, and I know this is like, blasphemy on the police department, but when I had 2 years on, they picked me to be the spokesperson, one of the PIOs, and it was people hated me. You sell out, they just doing it because you were black, which is true. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I happen to be outspoken, but it was because I was a minority, but I took advantage of it. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna do the best that I can. I'm gonna perform well. I'm gonna make everybody proud. And the good thing is that people had more respect for me after they saw me actually do the job and realized that I wasn't just a dumb athlete. I actually had some validity behind me. So, but the paperwork was my biggest thing, man. I couldn't write case reports right to save my life. The misspellings, and because I worked midnight shift, so I would misspell stuff or like use the wrong tense, and my sergeant was anal, man. She would send it back. She won't even tell you where the error is at. I don't know if you guys were writing, but we had them digitally on the computer. We would have to type it out, and so we would submit it. They'll reject it, and she used to reject my case reports every night and wouldn't even tell you. She go, well, reread it. I'm like, it's 3 pages. You give me a spot. Tell me where it's at. But I hated the paperwork, man. But I want to jump to another subject because, you know, I was just on the show and people are always talking about qualified immunity, and they're always talking about what police, you know, the stricter that the government should be against police or prosecution should be against police, and that, you know, all of these things they say. So what do you guys think about qualified immunity and the push to get rid of it? And just what are your thoughts on that? And whoever want to take it can go for it.
Well, it's nonsensical because it's not what people think it is. You know, they don't understand it, so they're criticizing something out of ignorance, which is always a bad place to start. So the first thing is to understand what qualified immunity is before people criticize it. Because 9 out of 10 times when someone says, "Oh yeah, we should get rid of qualified immunity," they couldn't even tell you what it is, because they think what it means is that the police get carte blanche to do what they want and get away with it, and some form of that, which obviously for people listening, most of you, I'm assuming, are fairly intelligent if you're tuning into this live stream. But, you know, qualified immunity protects you when you are acting in good faith, in line with the law. When what you do lines up with the law in good faith, like any reasonable person, then qualified immunity protects you from overzealous litigation against you in a civil sense. Because you could just lose everything because somebody wants to file a lawsuit against you. So removing that opens up the doors to these frivolous or baseless lawsuits, in which a lot of times you can't get backing from your department at that point. Or if you are able to get an attorney, then settling is very often cheaper than actually trying to litigate it. And so you can lose everything you've worked for. You know, Tatum talks about that beautiful pension and great pay above $8 an hour, you know, at the police department. You're going to lose all that you worked for because you did all the right stuff. So, yeah, man, it's nonsense, obviously.
If I add to that too, what people don't understand that is qualified immunity is in place for good officers. It's not in place for the bad officers, and it doesn't even cover the bad officers. You know, and it says specifically in qualified immunity that, look, if you are found doing something that's out of policy, that's in violation of any type of crime, it's not going to cover you anyway. So again, that whole qualified immunity argument is more of an emotional response that's not backed by facts. And I think that's where we're at right now in society, is because a lot of people are trying to make decisions based off of how they feel, not based off of what's real.
100%.
We just had a win actually in 11th Circuit Court. I believe it was the 11th Circuit. That incident with David Nave Jr. down in Georgia, I believe. He started a fire in his mother's apartment, grabbed a knife, took off, went to a convenience store, robbed the clerk. There was a witness outside when the cops showed up. They showed up to the convenience store and they pointed him in the direction of the suspect and started, you know, chasing him after giving him commands to stop. Still had the knife, and then there were 2 officers. He lunged at one of the officers, started slashing at him with the knife, and after the taser deployment didn't work, which is another topic we could probably cover, is why tasers are a bad idea in a deadly threat situation. They shot and killed him. And eventually the 11th Circuit Court ruled that he was covered under qualified immunity, that, you know, he was acting in self-defense in order to prevent himself or others from the deadly threat. So, I mean, that was good to read, because if qualified immunity goes away, who wants to be a cop at that point, knowing what you have to face out there?
Yeah, you can't afford to be a cop, you know,
No.
and I think what Mike said at the beginning, qualified immunity is this. I mean, the term itself makes it seem like you have immunity of anything that you do. It does not affect you in a criminal sense. If you break the law, you break the law, and you're going to go to jail. You know, the thing that's crazy to me is that people don't understand the law. There's a difference between it looks bad and it's against the law. Like seeing a cop sock somebody in the face and knock them unconscious, to any person, it looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
Was that police officer justified in using that amount of force to execute the arrest?
Good.
Right. And you're talking about the one in the—
absolutely justified. And you don't know how many people told me, I mean, I had a majority of people tell me the same thing, like, you're right. But it's just funny when you read some of the comments. But again, I try to understand, remembering before I was a police officer, it was easy for me to say the same thing as, oh, those police officers are wrong. But that's not an excuse for me to continue down that thought process. Like, at some point, you got to come out of it and be able to hear at least what some factual or facts about the situation. So yeah, he was absolutely justified in that.
Yeah, I mean, the lady bit him. You talk about the one in the store, right? He kind of missed.
My man gave her the business though.
he missed the Control Alt Delete button. I don't know. He hit her in the neck. If he'd have hit her right here, she would have went to sleep.
What they needed to do is put her down and punt her like a football.
Yeah. You know, the thing is that she bit him, and nobody wanted. First of all, that was the simplest case ever known to man. These women are doing something in the store that the store is disapproving of, or whatever the case may be. It don't even seem like they're really adamant on prosecuting. They just detained the young women, said, hey, come out, let's figure out what's going on. I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's a shoplifting or maybe a disorderly conduct between 2 women or something of that nature that has really nothing to do with the store. They just want people to be out of there. They would have been on their way if they'd done a crime, whatever it could have been in that sense, because they didn't get arrested right away. It wasn't that much of an exigent circumstance. They would have got a cite and released. But they can't do that. They got to yell and scream and fight and kick and scream in front of their kids, and then at some point try to bite the police officer. And then when he hits you in the back of the head or wherever he hit her at, everybody want to cry foul and video record and cuss the police officers out. And it's like, rational people should understand. Just listen to the cops and then deal with it later.
Oh, you know what? Just don't bite them. Just stop biting people. Don't bite people. This is
what's crazy though is, like, on top of that is, I always tell people, like, if I were to bite you right now, what's your response gonna be to me?
Right.
And everybody gonna tell me, like, oh man, I'm like, no, be real. Like, what's your real response gonna be to me? And so I was like, and even so, as police officers, we still have to go above and beyond and make sure there's a reason we use force. Like, there's a goal oriented behind it. You as a citizen, if I bite you, you could just punch me just because you felt like it. So I was like, so your expectations are becoming ridiculous for police officers. You just may say, I'm gonna sit here and let you bite me? Nah.
Yeah, I mean, cops are humans. We're human beings. Like, we have emotional responses. And a lot of times we are way more equipped to handle emotional responses than the average person, or we will all be in jail. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was many times where people would come at me crazy and I'm like, you lucky I got this badge on, because I'd love to take you back here in this alley and shoot you at work, and then I'll come back to duty because you talking real reckless. You know what I mean?
He says, you ain't nothing without that badge. Be like, man, I'd be way more interesting.
I'm everything without the badge.
Yeah. I told him I'm gonna take it off as bad as you.
I told a guy, man, I got in trouble. I didn't really get in trouble, but I had to tell the captain that I went there with this guy. But 2 times, I told the guy, I said, well, you know what? This badge is really saving you. And I said it in front of everybody. The badge is saving you, because I'll take this badge off, you're gonna get work. And then another time, a guy called me the N-word, man. And like, he was, it's a long story, but the dude called me the N-word to antagonize me. And I had spent so much time on his case, man. It was like 3 hours of investigating. And he was talking real reckless to us. And I told him, I said, look, man, come on from around that fence. Let's go to work. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna tell nobody. You don't tell nobody. Since you want to call me the N-word, come from around that fence, and we gonna go throw the hands. And of course, it never happened. But I had to tell my captain about it, which was kind of embarrassing to a certain degree. But these people get all crazy, but they got to understand that, like, we're humans too, and like, we have a visceral emotional experience when a person spit on you, or when they bite you, or kick you, or swing on you, or they go for your gun. Like, there's a triggered response that happened in you, and if you were on the streets without the badge, people would probably get a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely,
for sure.
And let's talk about another thing. And we talk about qualified immunity, defund the police. I personally think defunding the police is the rhetoric around it, because we know that it's in a fiscal spending year. So some of the defund the police, proposals aren't going to even take effect until a little bit later. However, I think that it really kills the morale, and that's why we see large amounts of crime being committed all over the country. What do y'all think?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what what Mike said about the qualified immunities. Is defunding people don't understand the repercussions of defunding the police. They just don't. They hear these slogans, about anti-police, defund the police, parroted all over the nation, and they think, yeah, we don't need cops, we don't need them. Yeah, we can handle things on our own. We'll be just fine. Really? Okay. How'd that work out for St. Louis and Minneapolis? It didn't work out too well.
Yeah, I mean, people
are about to find out.
Chicago,
they just passed some legislation. I mean, right now, guys, and you probably know this, but for the people watching, 45% early retirements are up, 20% just evacuating the positions are up right now. And Chicago is one of the fastest ones where people are bailing because leadership is completely absent. It's completely perverse. And now gang members in Chicago outnumber the police 10-1. So, hey, have fun sending the social worker to the 911 call. The problem is almost always the person that says defund the police out of this side of the tongue, that go past the fork in the middle, get to the other one, and you have police need better training. Right. So you don't get to have it both ways. You can't stand there on the fence. I mean, if you hang on the fence too long, it's going to start to hurt eventually. And this is just mental impossibility to have both of those be true at once.
So it's so funny with this whole conversation about defund the police. I did a video probably about a couple months back, and I just showed video after video of all these different crimes that have been going on. People shooting cops, people shooting each other, and all this other stuff. And I'm talking about, this is what happens when you defund the police. And I had all these people talking about, no, this has nothing to do with defunding the police and blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, that this defund the police, also the same people saying defund the police are the same ones saying abolish it and all this other stuff. So then I was like, let me break it down to you in the most simplistic terms so you can understand it. I'm an athlete. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. That's why I became a cop. I'm not the smartest guy. So as an athlete, and Brandon, you can relate to this. I remember playing at the Division I level. They invested a lot of money in us between the treatment we received, the athletic training, the travel, all the way up to the pillows that we slept in at night. They would give us Gatorade, you name it. Also what? So we could perform at our best on Saturday. Well, why did they want us to perform on Saturday? Because they brought in money for the organization if we won games. So they invested so much money into these athletes, me, so that way I would perform. So I take that same analogy and I take it to law enforcement. You tell me, like Mike just said, you want police to have better training. You want the most qualified people at your doorstep, but yet you want to take the same money out of their pockets, but want them to be the best they can be. I was like, so why, if we're spending millions and millions of dollars for Michigan State Wolverines, I use them as an example because their facilities are dope. Like I watched a whole YouTube video about, they got a little wash that you walk through, then it goes straight into the cold tub. They're investing.
Which one is Michigan State or Michigan? Which one?
University of Michigan.
Okay, yeah.
Wolverines.
Yeah, they're bougie.
They invested all of these dollars into these athletes to win a game that has no relevance to your life whatsoever. You will never call a Michigan State Wolverine and say, hey, can you come and stop this person at my door? But yet you want to take the money out of the person who might show up at your door to potentially save your life or somebody else that you know. I was like, the logic isn't there. And when you break it down to people, they start to realize like, oh, we actually need to give them more money, or we need to actually give them better training. So I was like, you can't have one without the other. You gotta be able to think logically about this.
Yeah, and people don't know what we do. Like, I think they think we just do traffic stops every day and then we shoot black people when they with the back turn. Like the police are involved in a whole bunch of other different things. Like, when people call, children are missing, when somebody called because somebody's gotten abused, or internet crimes, and barking dogs. I mean, disturbances.
Somebody threatened you on Facebook, called you
right,
name.
Right. That's the first people they called. As they, these same people that saying defund the police, the first thing they do, call the police. I mean, we deal with people on the front end so that they are not perpetuating crime in your communities on the back end, because they're committing crimes today that's going to lead to violent and more deadlier crimes tomorrow. But police officers are doing that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, while everybody sleep. Cops are out here grinding, and people don't understand. But then when you defund them, you start to really see the reality of it is that criminals are not sleeping under a rock. They're like, okay, I don't see 5-0 ride in the community like they used to. They're not, that we see them and they don't even look. We doing drugs right here on the street, and it's not even worth it to them, because we're going to get out if we go to jail. I mean, we get locked up just for the one day and they'll let us out in the morning. So people are being emboldened. Did y'all see that video? And I know you saw it, Nate, because I saw you posted on your video. I mean, on your social media. that kid, that rapper, that got killed. I mean, the thing is
horrible.
that who you think responded to that? It wasn't Al Sharpton. It was a police officer that had to go and look at this young man bleeding out. He was dead probably by the time they got there. And, and the family was on the scene screaming bloody murder. It was live streamed. Everybody that was watching saw him get murdered. And who do you think is responding to this? Who do you think is going to get justice for this guy? And you defund the police. Now they don't have enough adequate resources to do an investigation, to do anything. And you know, more of these things are going to happen.
Well, you know, it's even crazy too, real quick, is the people calling to defund the police don't even live in these neighborhoods that are getting shot up every day. If you go ask these people in the neighborhoods that live in the places that are getting shot up every day, every single one of them will tell you, no, we need you guys here. Like, we want you guys here. But yet it's the people that go home to their gated communities, wherever they are, because they got to get elected or whatever it is. So I'm going to yell out, defund the police, because that's what's going to allow me to keep my seat in politics.
It's the liberal arts majors from UC Berkeley that are screaming defund the police.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more at work than this. I think that is instigated from a political perspective. I mean, this is my personal opinion on this. I don't have any like hard data on it, but I feel like if there's an end game involved politically, it's that the federal government wants to eke more control into law enforcement, continue to remove the, how law enforcement conducts itself in community A versus community B based on those differences of what kind of crimes are we struggling with? What are our issues in this community that law enforcement can be brought to bear on to improve this place? Instead, we'll see a greater desire for removing certain funding there, and they want greater control to be able to employ federal guidelines and laws and remove the ability for local law enforcement or state issues to be lived out that way. But that's my thoughts on why that defund the police movement has so much traction at a high level.
Yeah, it's federal control. They want to federalize police because then they can control the police across the board. Yeah. Like I was just on a guy's show, which I think he's an incredible idiot, but I was just on his show and he was like talking about, oh, well, they want to have this federal database where the police departments have to report bad officers, and it's like that's something that shouldn't be handled on the federal level. What does the federal government have to do with local policing? If you go from city to city, that city's HR should be calling the other police department and saying, what is this guy's record? What did he get written up for? That's on a local level, but they want it on the federal government so they can then play politics with it. And then they can shun you. If you have any type of mishap or you've been written up for any reason, if you ever go out and do something, now they can bring down and have all your stuff and put it out to the public and do all of these nefarious things. And another thing is that when they're ready to push masks, when they're ready to push vaccines, they can do it unilaterally through a federalized police department. They can say, you got to wear a mask or we're going to do this. Right now, they can't do that because the state of Florida,
city
to city, they can say, no, we're not gonna do that. You're not gonna be able to control that. So I think they're trying to federalize.
Man, my mail can't even make it here on time, let alone them running a police department.
Oh my God!
I think that's another example of just how little people understand about police work and actually the hiring process. I mean, it's not, if you have a bad officer gets fired from one agency, it's not like he's going to go over to the next agency with his gun and his duty belt and go, hey, I'm going to work for you guys now. And they say, come on over. The hiring process is much more elaborate than that. It takes months sometimes to hire an officer and go through his background and, make sure he's squared away.
Yeah, 40 pages. Mine was 43 pages of paperwork I had to fill out.
63.
Yours 63? I couldn't believe it. I had to, all of my neighbors that I ever lived around, all of them, I had to go knock on people's door and say, hey, man, you mind, giving some information for this thing because they got to call you. And I had my family members, everything. They run your credit. Yeah, I mean, they get your bank accounts. They go through everything.
When I was a teenager, I had people calling me that I hadn't talked to since I was like in high school. Like, what did you do? You becoming a cop or something? Why did I have this?
They dug up folks I didn't want them talking to. I mean,
that's a background investigator calls the people you put on your list and go, who else do you guys know in common? And then they follow the thread,
But see, that's where and I think that goes back to the education side. And I think that's why I'm so big on education, because you got some ignorant folks out there, no doubt about it. They're just going to be ignorant. But there's a lot of good people out there that are just really misinformed. And so it's like, you know, we got to educate them so that way. And I've had so many people that used to be the biggest haters and naysayers on my page. But man, it's funny, man, when they start to like, they've been following me long enough to where they'll hit me up and like, man, like, you've changed my perspective in many ways. So they'll start reposting my stuff and they start taking heat from people in their own group. Now I'm like, you like how that feels now, huh? You like that?
Yeah, man, it's information. People need to be informed about how these things happen. You know, they like, well, it takes, you know, they did this dumb excuse and it just makes my brain pop every time they say it. Somebody, you know, doing hair gets more training than a police officer. It's like, shut the front door. It's not happening. You know, we get a level of training in academy, and then at some point you got to go real life. You know, you can't just do scenarios every day. But we get exposed to the craziest stuff, and we are put in such peculiar positions that you gotta learn how to drive, you gotta learn how to shoot, you gotta handle composure. And it made me want to touch on this one thing that I think, Nate, you were talking about, is that you have to be proficient, and then even the equipment that they give us is not always proficient in the most accurate. What I would say is the taser, because I took my taser off. We had to have a certain amount of less lethal on our gun belt, and I took my taser off, man. I just never wore it. I never used it. I think I pulled it out one time on the guy that was butt naked. He was high on bath salts or something, and he was butt naked. And I was like, I'm not gonna touch this guy. I'm gonna tase this guy if it come down to it. And it worked. I mean, he saw the little beam and he gave up. But the second time, man, we were going into a
triple leg takedown on those guys.
You gotta do what?
Triple leg takedown.
A triple leg. Just as long as the leg don't hit me in the head. We went into this house where we forced entry. It was a guy. He was screaming and tearing up his apartment, and they had a guy on lethal, and I was on less lethal. I pulled a taser out, and the guy on lethal obviously went in front of me, and he got into the fight, so he had to holster his gun, and I can't pull the taser out because they're fighting in front of me. And this dude is back crap crazy. He throws the police officer over the couch, and I'm like, what? I had to throw the taser in the corner and just go hands on with this guy because I can never get a clear shot, and the guy is out of control. And if you miss, it's gonna be on, you know. So I'm not a taser fan.
Well, we had a lot of guys when I was still working for the Twin Falls Police Department. We had a lot of guys who were very over reliant on the taser. And they didn't bother to do any hands-on, you know, hand-to-hand stuff, any type of physical training, because they thought, well, I got this taser. The taser's going to work. No big deal. I deployed my taser, I think 3 times, and each of those times it was not effective. So I was like you, Brandon. I'm like, I'm just going to leave it in the holster. Maybe it'll come in handy at some point, but I'm going to stick with jujitsu. I'm going to stick with lifting weights. I'm going to be confident in my ability to go hands-on with somebody and take him to the ground because it's safer anyway. I mean, you tase a guy and he stiffens up and falls over and maybe busts his head open on the pavement. Or you can take a guy to the ground in a controlled manner and get him cuffed up. There might be 2 or 3 of you there. That's way more effective and way more safe than tasing a guy.
Yeah, you lock a guy while he's running. We had that. I had a scenario just like that. I had a rookie. We're chasing this guy. I'm running with the rookie, trying to make sure he don't get killed. And then there's another officer that came around the corner, and he's one of those officers that's right there on the verge of like getting fired every day, so he goes around the corner and he's crazy, man. So he tased the guy. The first thing he did, tase him. The dude stiffened up, hit his face right on the concrete, man. Deservedly so. Mind you, he deserved it because he was beating the living daylights out of a woman when we pulled up, and she was beating her to a pulp, just beating her while he was looking at us, trying to get through the fence. And so he get tased, he hit the ground, but he started having seizures and stuff like that. So it's like, that's way more complicated than if we just went hands-on, catch the guy, drag him down. He may get some, scratches or whatever, but at least we can control him, and at least we control the tempo, and we know for a fact that that's what's going to happen. We don't know, where you shoot it and you miss or hit a guy's jacket, he pull him out, and now you got the thing in your hand and you're looking stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like the guys in Atlanta, where they fighting the guy with the taser, they had to end up shooting him.
Yep.
When if they would have just went hands-on and started working him a little bit instead of trying to tase him, they would have been better off.
You said it, Nate. I mean, the over-reliance on that taser, man, we see it a lot with newer officers, and you also see it with people that have never been in a fight before. Luckily, I had been in a few fights before I got into law enforcement, and I played contact football, so I've never really been afraid to go hands-on. But I would say about 3 or 4 months ago, I recently started jiu-jitsu, And man, let me tell you, like that needs to be more incorporated more into what we do. No doubt about it. Now there's some people trying to come out and make some crazy even requirements for that. Every officer should be a blue belt before they can take the street. That ain't even possible. It's not even. It's logistically, it's not possible. Y'all already talking about taking the money away from us. Where do you think the money gonna come from for that? So that's a story for a different day. But if you have the opportunity to learn that, I mean, just in the short 3 or 4 months that I've been doing it, let me tell you, like, I feel so much more confident going hands-on. Like, before I was confident, but it was more so just the street side of me. Like, man, I'll pull the paws out if I got to pull the paws out. Yeah. But now, like, knowing what I can do, if I go to the ground, knowing I have a game plan. And so I think we sometimes we underestimate just going hands-on with people. The best thing you could do before something escalates is just grab somebody and you stop it from going, you know, somewhere it shouldn't have gone in the first place. So I think that's one of those things that we should look into more. But yeah, we got to stop being so like the tasers are an effective tool, but it's not the end all be all.
Nah, because you get soft, you get weak, you start tasing grandma and little kids, and it's like, dude, you know, sack up a little bit. You know, you're gonna have to fight and confidence. And I think you guys all hit on a positive point. I was incredibly confident shooting and fighting. Even though I wasn't, you know, I didn't have any real training, I just was confident. Like you said, I grew up fighting. I was confident. I was like, I whoop anybody out here. There's no, and if I start losing, I'm just gonna 1084, 1018, and now big Rob and them gonna come through there and
I got an Afro, I got a Mustang, and I got fists.
I am not losing. Trust me, I ain't losing. Dog.
You know, look, B Tatum with the hood come out of me, man. I ain't losing to none of y'all. So, but I was really confident. Therefore, I didn't have that many aggressive situations because I would be calm with people. Like, you know, sir, you don't want to do that. Don't do that. Put your hands behind your back, or else. I'm not gonna tell you more than once. And the seriousness in my voice, and when he look at me, he like, okay, this dude is kind of serious. You know, like
he's not playing.
He's not playing games. He probably will beat me down. So that's what was in their mind. And sometimes I will tell them, like, look, you know, you either do this or I'm gonna make you, and it's not gonna be pretty. I'm just warning you, and you're gonna lose bad. You know what I'm saying? If you try to fight me, you're gonna lose bad. And all my boys gonna come here and we're gonna beat you. That's what's gonna happen. So you need to listen to what we're saying, and everything will be smooth. And people psychologically, even though I don't mean that we're gonna beat them like that, but psychologically, people start thinking like, "Dang, am I really ready for this pressure?
I really want this.
I really want that smoke."
You know, hey, yeah, you might get me, man. You might get me, but there's gonna be a cavalry that's gonna show up, and they're gonna make you regret that you ever made that decision.
bro, when Big Tatum show up to the scene, everybody know it's gonna be all right because I'm coming in hot. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, people don't understand this. Like, we're family. Like, just like with us, you know, we don't. I don't think we've ever met in person. I don't think none of us have met each other in person. We live in all the different states. But like, if we were on duty together, and just say Nate called out on the radio that he need backup, you know, our call was 1084 1018. That means that everything has hit the fan except a shooting. You know, shooting is 1099, but 1084 1018, that means I need a backup now. You know, when you hear your friend, somebody that you care about, that's like a brother to you, you know, their family, like when you hear them get on the radio and they're in distress, especially somebody who's normally calm, and you hear them amped up on the radio, it's like, it's on. Like, I gotta show up.
Yeah, you can't get there fast enough.
Right. And when you get there, it's no, oh, Mr. Bad Guy, your daddy didn't treat you right when you were a kid. You know, you must be dealing with so much oppression in your life.
First of all, you call him a bad guy. You got to ask his pronouns before you get too far in.
He, she, it, hers. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm doing it in jest a little bit. When we don't just show up and beat the mess out of people, unless, you know, that they deserve the amount of force necessary to execute an arrest. And that's what we do. And people it don't look pretty, but that's what we have to do. So let me jump to another subject. And, you know, what do you guys think that's a solution to what's going on now, you know, outside of firing every politician that's on the Democrat side just about? But, you know, what do you think of solutions? You know, I want to give you guys an opportunity to say, you know, this is what I think will change the curve in law enforcement, morality wise, funding wise, rhetoric from politicians. Like, you know, what can encourage good people to want to get back into this profession again?
Ooh, that's a weighted question right there.
I think, like, you have to start with what you can reach, and then reach a little bit further. So start with who you have influence over at the department and in your community. You're not going to solve it. Like, we're not going to solve it by, I go and troll Joe Biden's Facebook every day for Mike. But I'm not changing Joe Biden. I'm not changing the White House. I'm not changing the GOP or the DNC or any of those other animals. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not changing that stuff. What I can do, though, is have that conversation with my neighbor. I can have that conversation with people who are seeing the content that I'm putting out, and encouraging them to do the same exact thing. So it starts at a level where people can make decisions. You can't always influence the big, but you can influence the small. And so start small. Think small to accomplish big. So I think, like, at your department, in your community, in your local politics, in your local opportunities to serve your community, whatever that is for you, whatever that niche is, whatever that passion is, hey, start there and do that. Because that's all you can control. That's all you can do. And that creates momentum, at least on a local level, you know?
Yeah.
And if enough local levels are being impacted, that starts to make bigger changes over time. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, Ryan, you're doing that right now, aren't you? I mean, your organization does things like that, right?
Yeah. So, and I was going to say, like, I think every single one of us on here started on a local level. Like, when I started, it wasn't to go say, hey, I'm trying to make it to the White House tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when I started, it was just trying
we all aren't hanging out at UFC fights with
yeah, that's true too, right?
I mean, let's just put ourselves in our
but you know what's funny about that? What's funny about that is like, I saw that, Tatum, and that was dope. But like, even this past year, man, I found myself hanging out with people that have a lot of power in this world. And that didn't start by me just saying, hey, man, hey, I want to come kick it with you and tell you what law enforcement's about. You know, it like Mike said, you got to control what you can control. You got to be willing to put in the work. If you're a law enforcement officer listening to this, I want you to know, too, you also have to be willing to realize that we're not perfect. A lot of what we do is good, and the majority of what we do is good, but we're not perfect. So understand we got flaws, acknowledge that. But then once you understand that, then can you send the change that people need to see? You know, I said this on the other day on the podcast. I said, look, man, it's funny. When eval, we're all police officers. So if you don't know, you know, for the most part, police officers get evaluations on a yearly basis. And it's so funny listening to your partners talk about the eval they got. Either they really happy about the eval they got, or they're not happy with eval. And the way they measure evals at my department is 4 different categories. It's either needs improvement, meets the standards, exceeds the standards, or consistently superior. So I hear a lot of times people like, man, they gave me a meet the standards eval, man. They gave me a that's BS, man. I can't believe that cat over there getting exceeds, blah, 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 blah. But in my mind, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, bro, how do you expect exceeds the standard eval when you don't meet the standards work? And so that's the problem, not just in law enforcement, but in the society. Is like, everybody want to do all this, but nobody want to go out there and do the work. I can guarantee you right now, B. Tatum, my man Mike, my man Nate are doing things when everybody sleep, when everybody playing video games. We take comments that people have talked about my family, my kids, you name it, but we're putting in the work that nobody wants to do. So if you really want to make that change, you have the abilities to do it. You just got to go out and do it. And if you don't want to do what we're doing on a bigger level, just do it on the calls for service. Go out there and impact somebody on that next call for service you go on. Just have a conversation with them. Be a human being. And if you're somebody in the community that's not a police officer and has no desire to do it, all I ask is that you just open up your mind and open up your heart. I don't ask you nothing else. Come with an open mind, come with an open heart. You know, I grew up predominantly in a liberal family. If I had to say what I am now, I'm probably more of a conservative. I don't really talk politics, but I'm more conservative. But the only way I got there is because I had a open mind, an open heart. And I'm not faulting you if you one way or another, but at least I have an open heart to hear what Tatum has to say, to hear what Mike has to say, to hear what all these people have to say. And then I make my own decisions. But don't make a decision because your grandma, your mom, your dad, anybody told you. I will respect a man or a woman more because they made their own decisions because they did their own research, as opposed to the person that made a decision because everybody else just said, let's just do that.
Yeah, 100%. Nate, what's your thoughts?
Well, you know, just to add to what these guys have already said, you know, you got to start small and work your way out to the big stuff. And start as small as, you know, reaching out, you know, in my experience, the only time someone calls a chief or a captain or a mayor is when they're pissed off at the cops. Call the chief or the captain or the mayor when you run into an officer who goes above and beyond, right? He goes that extra mile, even though it's not part of his job description, to help out someone and make their day a little bit better. Call the chief and say, hey, you know what? Officer so-and-so did an amazing job today. He helped me out of a bad situation and made my day that much better. Like, if we can start there. I mean, it seems simple, but those things will pay dividends for those officers who, get complained on time and time again. Like Mike said in the beginning, one of his biggest pet peeves, which is actually mine too. I didn't want to jump into that right away, but these spineless administrators who will not back their guys. I think if they get a little more pressure from the other side of the community saying, hey, we like our cops. They're doing a difficult job. They do it well most of the time. Let's have their back every now and then. So if you start small like that, I think that'll make a huge difference, and that will expand outwardly to the bigger things.
I'd add one real quick is I think the silent majority, I feel like that needs to become the outspoken majority.
Yes.
And that's a shift of one simple thing. Because guys, everything that we want in life that we don't have now, if we're unsatisfied with something, it lies outside of our comfort zone. It lies out of what's convenient for us. And I know that we're so blessed in this country that we can still, we're holding our iPhone and we're Googling any information we want in the universe, and we got our expensive coffee drink, and we go home to Netflix, and we're driving our vehicle that basically drives itself. We do all this stuff. It's an inconvenience, maybe a step outside of comfort to make that call, Nate, like you're talking about. Like, call the chief, call your department, call your senator, call your representative. Right. And if you're not calling a state representative or your representative for the House or your senator, call your one for your city, for your township. Have those conversations. Start communicating. Start vocalizing. And it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it means you're going to add 3 minutes to your day. But hey, if you're really the silent majority, you need to be the vocal majority.
Well, and people don't have a problem reminding cops that their tax dollars pay our salaries. How about you reach out to the people who really do work for you, like the senators and the representatives, and saying, hey, this is how I want you to vote on this particular issue.
Yeah. It's funny that the people that say you pay my they don't even pay taxes. So it's like, you're not even contributing, really.
I would book people, man, and I would see like a tax refund. I remember pulling people out. I have them up against the wall, and going into the pockets. I pull out an income tax refund check, and I'd be like, my man, where'd you get this? He's like, where do you work? I'm booking them in the computer. I'm like, what's your place of employment? I'm unemployed, man. I'm like, I said, and I would hold that check. I go, you're welcome. He's like, what are you talking about? That's from the government. I'm like, this is exactly why you need to go back to school, man.
Right.
Figure out where taxes come from.
I'm like, I pay your tax. I'm paying taxes so you can get food stamps every day.
I'm paying your bail money, man. That's how this works.
Yeah, that's right. You got the county that that you got to pay every time you book somebody in jail. Like, I'm paying for your jail stay and your meals while you're here. Don't give me that stuff. And most of them are not even paying tax, and they just losers. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I think the solution is very similar to what you guys are saying, is that you got to do what you can control. Police officers, what I used to do every day, man, and this is how I used to operate as a cop. I used to act like I was being recorded every time I'm doing anything, anywhere, as if I'm recorded. So a lot of my interactions were incredibly positive, because I'm not some different type of person when I'm recording and when I'm not, and I get caught up in the moment. I always treat people with respect, and I was very firm. If I have to put my hands on you, I'll put my hands on you. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And I think that being the change that you want to see in your community as a police officer is the best way to start. And also, this is something that I didn't say, but it's incredibly invaluable, is that call and support your police officers. I always tell people, we used to love when people used to send us pizzas, or they used to send us cards and stuff to the substation, or they see us in the store, you're getting a drink from QT or something, and they go, thank you for your service, we really appreciate you. And I'm telling you, like, I didn't want to cry in front of these people, but it make you feel really good. You're like, you know what, everybody ain't crazy and deranged and on methamphetamine all day. So it make you feel like, okay, maybe people do support us. Maybe we are impacting the world instead of just dealing with negative people. But calling in, writing letters, emailing, it works. It works on the negative too, because Officer Corbin Seward from DC Metro, when they fired him, or they tried to fire him over him making a comment that was legitimate.
Stab somebody?
Huh?
You're gonna stab somebody?
Yeah, right. The dummy asked, "Are you gonna shoot us like Makai Bryan?" And then he go, well, you're going to stab somebody? I mean, I think that was the most accurate community outreach that I've ever seen, because he educated him and he wasn't rude. And the guy was antagonizing him the whole time, which, of course, the guy didn't put that on record. But we bombarded them. Like, people from all over the country, they were getting 200 emails plus a day. They were getting calls so much that they broke the phone system. They couldn't. The chief had to operate from a cell phone because the lines were blowing up. And what did they do? The next day, they reinstated him. They gave him his gun and stuff back. And they got pressure, because the reason they took his gun was because BLM was calling and threatening and saying all that. And then when people that support the police called, they were overwhelmed with far more people, and they had to reinstate the cop.
Right now, BLM, but they're not going to be a problem anymore, because they're going to all move to Cuba.
Yes. I think they moved to LA. That's what they Cuba.
Hey, you brought up a good point, Tatum, because we do this thing with humanizing the badge, like these We See You cards. That's our nonprofit, and people get these cards that says, "Dear Officer, we need you," and they hand them out. And we get people emailing every day like, man, this made my day. You don't even know how important this was. And then we'll get emails from some people go, hey, I gave this card, or I told an officer thank you, and they didn't seem to care. And I'm like, trust me, you made their day. Like, so guys, if you ever say thank you to an officer, a lot of times it's hard for officers to receive that. It's just they feel uncomfortable. They feel on the spot. They're not doing it for the accolades and you bringing attention to them. So it's just their personality. They might just feel uncomfortable. But trust me when I say, every time they're walking away and they feel their day has been exponentially improved just because of a kind word. Trust me.
Well, and it's unusual for that to happen to them, right? It's not common that people reach out and say thank you.
Yeah, and it's weird, because you got to think cops are not dealing with people who have a quinceañera, not unless the quinceañera goes bad. But, nobody's getting married and saying, hey, Officer Tatum, I want to invite you over here to our wedding. Everything is cool. We're having a good time. You should come by. They're not saying that. Somebody has stabbed somebody or shot somebody, or they just got a divorce because somebody cheated on somebody. Now somebody wants the kids and they want a restraining order. And now you over there involved in this mess, and you have your own life. I remember when I was on duty, man, I was single. My son is downstairs. Me and his mom did not get along. And I went through all of this drama, man, in my personal life. But I used to go to work every day, and I used to pour everything I had into these people, telling them, life is going to be good for you. You can make it. Keep going. And I would go home empty, man. I would go home completely broken and sitting in the corner. I mean, I would sit in my closet one day, and I ain't gonna lie, I was contemplating suicide. Now, I didn't go as far as really planning it, but I thought about it. I thought about it. Like, what if I wasn't here? What would, I'm sick of this stuff. I only, my life is feel like it's going south, and these people are, I deal with these people every day. Like, when am I gonna get a break? And we don't get paid nothing. So, in order to make all the stuff that I had to make, the bills and everything, and child support and all the stuff that I had to work OT. You know what I'm saying? I had to go overtime. I had to do off-duty jobs. So it was very troubling. So when somebody actually comes up to you and say, thank you, the initial reaction may not be there because you're shocked. Like, and you don't know how to respond. Should I hug you? You don't want to be like emotional in front of people. You just say, thank you, and keep it pushing. But it makes an incredible impact, because you never know where an officer is at. He may be ready to commit suicide that night, and somebody gives him something that he take home when he pull it out his uniform and be like, oh yeah, that was, you know what? I think I can do it another day. Here's the thing that I wanted to do, and I saw a guy do this, and I think, Mike, you alluded to that, you do this as well. I think I'm gonna start doing it on my store. I'm gonna buy a bunch of business cards, but I'm gonna laminate them, because a guy gave me a card and said, hey, get this to a police officer, and it was just a paper card. And I'm like, an officer is less likely to keep up with that, and it's gonna get damaged. If you laminate it, and I don't think it probably costs much, but if you laminate a card like that and you give it to a police officer, they can always keep it with them, because when they sweat or when it gets wet or whatever, it's not gonna crumble up. A lady gave me the Archangel Michael when I first started. I had just walked across the stage in graduation, and she gave me the Archangel Michael on a card. I wore that every single day of my career. I never went to, I say never went to work. If I didn't have it, I had to go to work anyway. But I made sure that I had it when I went to work every single day, 6.5 years. I didn't miss a shift. When I was on the SWAT team, SWAT training, everything, I had that little thing with me, and it lasted for 6.5 years because it was laminated. So That's one thing that I want to do too, is like every time people buy stuff from the store, they'll get some cards in the mail that they can just hand out to police officers, because, you know, maybe a movement can start, you know, where we're encouraging them to do better. So we're coming towards the end. I only want to do an hour. Of course, I want you guys to come back because we have to continue this conversation. People don't get to hear from real police officers. You know, I think, Ryan, are you still on patrol?
Man, I'm still on patrol, man. I'm actually, there's an operation going on probably like 2 a.m. So I worked 10 hours this morning, and then I'll probably take like a quick nap and then go do the operation at 2 a.m. So
all right, brother, you be safe out there.
Yeah, be safe out there.
Don't slap them too hard. Make sure you use a black privilege though, because that'll work. That'll help.
Hey, man, I got them paws still, man. I'll be telling you, man, I got the paws.
You know what's funny, man? I'm not gonna lie. I used to think about this when I was on duty. You know, we used to go to a scene and there were black people that were acting crazy. I used to always have to be the one to address them, because I was like the black person whisperer, because the white officers didn't want to, you know, they walk up and they go, "Oh, you a racist white cop, you just did," and then I walk up and they like, "Oh, yeah, brother, see, tell him, man," and I'll be like, "Well, hey, you're still going to jail, but you know, if you feel comfortable around me, that's fine, but you're going to go to jail."
It's like that scene from Airplane, like the speak. Excuse me, stewardess, I speak jive.
Bro, let me tell you, I sat in the meeting this morning with one of our local apartment complexes, because they had some unruly people at the pool this weekend. And let me tell you, I'm sure you guys can guess what race they were.
Black people.
Yes. And you know what's funny, to kind of, if I'm gonna keep it 100, I'm gonna just keep 100. So when we asked what's one of the most irritating things about this job, honestly, man, I told my buddy this, man, I hate dealing with unruly black people. And I'm saying that as a black man, I'm saying that for this reason, because, and I want y'all to if y'all stay with me on this. Right now, like when you watch the media, all you see in the media is like, they like to push that black people can't speak, we can't talk, we can't do this, we can't do that. That's all you see. And so what starts to happen with other people and other races is they start to think that every single black person is like that. And so when I'm working and I see people acting like that, knowing that we don't all make up that, we're not all like that, and that you can be better, it's irritating, because I got partners that I work with that in the back of my mind, they probably not thinking this, but they might. But I'm thinking like, man, see, they think, there they go again. There they go again. And this weekend we had some unruly people at our place, and I'm just like, man, we can be better. We need to be better. And it's the same concept with cops. It's like, all the media likes to push out there is that, oh man, all these cops are bad. It's like, we know we're not all bad. It's only a small percentage of us that's doing some corrupt stuff. So it's the same concept. So me and a lot of black officers, we've talked about that. And that's why I think what motivates me is because I need to go out there and say, look, man, we got to be better. Because like Tatum said, I'm the one that they ask. Anytime we got a negotiation to do and the suspect is black, who you think they call? And right, we need you.
It's like a translator. You know, you call it, you get on the radio and you go, you have a translator available or whatever y'all call it or whatever. It's like, you have a black officer available to come to the scene. And then you get there and they like, oh brother, see, I knew you. See, come over here, man. See, these white boys trying to get me. And I'm like, you know what? They technically, we family. Me and you ain't cool. You got to go to jail. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna tell y'all this scenario. And this was one of those moments, Ryan, that you're talking about that was embarrassing. I'm like, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, black people. I know my other officers are like, see, they doing it again. I thought you said they want every call we go to, they doing the same thing. We go to a loud party call. So it's a college street, and you know, like some people been living on the same street. Y'all probably dealt with this. Been living on the same street for 20 years, but people buy up the houses and they let college students live on the same street. So you have boomers and you have college students on the same street, and so these kids are drinking and partying all night. So of course we got 40 calls holding for service at 9 a.m. in the morning. Because we had like a big call out, a standoff or something early in the night. So we got calls just piling up. It took like 5 hours to get to this guy's loud party call. So we show up and the guy's cussing all these white cops out and calling them names, being racist. If I wasn't black, y'all would have showed up, as if we know what color you are when you call in for a loud party. So we get there and the guy's acting a fool. So they send B. Tatum. And I talk to him and he's still a nut. And all he's saying is that y'all wouldn't have done this if I wasn't black. See, y'all white officers, you know, I'm out here making calls and y'all wasting time. I pulled the guy in. I showed him the computer. I said, look, you see all these calls? You see all these calls pending? This is why we didn't come. It's a shooting, a stabbing, a high-speed chase. This is why we didn't show up to you until now. Then we go across the street to the loud party call. 99.9% of the kids there are white. It is a white. We live in a white town. One black guy. He said, "The only reason y'all here because I'm black." You know, I said, "God." The man calling for the party is being racist and black. And then the only black kid over here is saying we racist because he black. I'm like, y'all.
We can't win.
We can't
We
win.
can't win, man.
And I said, I had my friend Jake look just like Nate, and I can see. I feel like Jake and Nate are the same person, and so I can see Jake's face being like, "Hey man, yeah, they y'all still can't get it together. Get your people together, man."
That's what I've been thinking, man. And they're probably not even thinking that, but in my mind, I'm thinking like, man. And again, this ain't all this because again, I love just people in general. People know my heart, but it's just frustrating because I want us to be better as a people. That's all it is. I want us to be better as a people. And so when I see that, I'm like, we're living up to the stereotypes that are, that we shouldn't be living up to. We shouldn't be acting like they already think we scary, dangerous, this and that. Well, when you show up shooting people, how do you think they're supposed to think of you? You know what I mean? So
you're scary and dangerous. That's why I don't live there. I'm just being honest. But anyway, now let me get. I want to do a round so everybody know what everybody's involved in. Nate, what do you got going on, man? I know your book is coming out. I don't know if you're ready to tell people what date or whatever y'all keeping it a secret or not. But I know the book is coming out. I wrote the foreword in your book.
Yes.
So I'm very proud of that. So tell people where they can find you if you're doing work, how they can donate and support you or whatever the case may be.
You can find me on Instagram at Nate's Wilden, Facebook at Nate Sylvester, TikTok and we don't get along anymore. But the book's coming out in September. I believe the release date is September 30th. But don't quote me on that. But you can pre-order the book Never Off Duty at D'Angelo Publications. And thank you again, Brandon, for the foreword. That's solid of you, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're my brother from another mother, man. I support you on that one. So, all right, cool. Mike, where can people find you? Where can people support you and the things that you got going on?
Man, if you look at Mike the Cop, it should be me. It might be somebody else. I don't care either way.
the guy that looked like a firefighter.
Yeah. So, the latest project that I've been doing is I launched a podcast called Failure to Stop. So that's going to be live tomorrow morning at 11 in the morning Eastern time. So I've been doing that. We're on our 5th episode. So if you want to listen to that, that's great. Humanizing the Badge is the nonprofit that we started back in 2015. We're doing grants for officers and for people in their community that are doing good things. So it's a kind of a two-way street. So if cops are doing cool things in their community with community members, we want to support that. If you're a community member doing cool things, you want to support that, apply for the grants at humanizingthebadge.com. We're giving those out every quarter. So that's been kind of like a big shift in the direction for the nonprofit. I don't make a dime off that. So just trying to do the right thing there. And that's about it. And my OnlyFans, I'm working on that one, but it's called Mike, 3-Legged Mike.
I'm not gonna be able to eat dinner tonight. Mike on OnlyFans with a fireman hat on and a police jacket on. You're gonna have men going to your OnlyFans. It's gonna be all men.
Hey man, I don't judge.
2021, baby.
Ryan, what you got, man? I know you got I think it's a nonprofit or something that you're doing that's incredible. The hat that you have on is a part of your brand. So tell us about that and where people can support you.
Yeah, so it's Breaking Barriers United. I speak all across the country to schools, high schools, middle schools, colleges. I actually just with COVID opening up, I'm gonna be back on the road a lot. And then so I do that. You can find me on Instagram under Breaking Barriers United. Find me on YouTube under Breaking Barriers United. I also host a podcast that's about going on 2.5 years strong with my other brother from another mother, AJ Anthony Johnson. He goes by Oh No, It's the Popo. Him and Mike. I actually was introduced to Mike through AJ, and AJ's doing phenomenal work in Columbus, Ohio. But it's a great podcast, and that's where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. So that's called It's Needed. You can look it up on all major podcast platforms and YouTube. And then last, I am on TikTok as Officer Tillman. I ain't made a post in a minute, but yeah, I'm on there. So if you want me to come out and speak to your school, I'm also actually in the process of doing some law enforcement training as well. So I'm working with a company called Open Sesame, where we'll be putting some classes and courses together for private and public sectors to help officers and also anybody in the private sector with a whole bunch of assortment of things. So that's where you can find me at.
Nice.
You sure Open Sesame not your OnlyFans account?
Hey man, you're not supposed to be giving all my secrets out. Come on now.
Oh,
Come on,
man. OnlyFans is funny, man. If I was not a good person, my God, I'd be on there making all that money.
There's a reason you're a good person, bro. God knew.
God helped me make $1 million in one night. A girl, I was watching somebody's podcast. I forget what it was. The dude's in Florida. I mean, they're in Miami, I think. They got a podcast, and they had a girl on there that said it was Logan Paul or whatever. She was on there and said she made $1 million in one night. One night, man, on OnlyFans, showing
virtual stripping is virtual stripping,
showing whatever. I mean, dang.
You guys need to understand that if you were actually a real man and had game, you could see nudity for free. I'll tell you.
Well, for 30-something years, it's been all free for me. I don't know. You got to pay for that, bro. You struck something wrong with you, man. God, dang. But anyway, man, we have a good time on this show, man. YouTube ain't ready for us, man. But
you need an unedited version where we talk about all the stuff behind.
I know, dude. You
don't want to take the brakes off me, man. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, dude, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I promise you, we're gonna do it because we have a community. I have my community that's off YouTube, so we'll give exclusive content to the community. Y'all pay attention. You join the Tatum Squad, you'll have exclusive content. So when we do interviews like this, we'll do an off the cuff version of the interview. I want to make sure that we get it structured and everything, and make sure everybody's time is accounted for. So we'll do it the next time. We'll have a real talk, man. Say whatever you want to say. We'll run that, and people in the community will have access to that. If you want to be a part of that exclusive stuff, then go to the community, join the Tatum Squad. But man, I appreciate you guys, man. Nate, y'all stick around when I'm gonna close out, and then we'll have a quick conversation after. But I appreciate you, Nate, Mike, and Ryan, man. I appreciate you guys coming on. We need more officers out there giving a perspective and people seeing us unite and seeing, one of us is somebody's favorite, and seeing us all together, I think really shows that we're in unity to support police officers in this country, even though we may have come from a different perspective. We were police in very different cities, different perspectives, different situations. Ryan, you're still a police officer, and we've all retired. I like to say I retired. People are like, you retired? And I'm like, yeah, I take my retirement. Yeah. Retirement sound real good to me. Make it sound like I would accomplish something. But anyway, I appreciate you guys, man. I love you guys. So I'll see you on the next one. I'm gonna pull you guys down. I'm gonna close out. Just a couple more super chats. Y'all stick around, and then we'll chat afterwards. But I appreciate you, Nate, Mike, Ryan. I think I closed it out a little differently. But anyway, I love you guys. Thank y'all for going on. Hit the like button. Share this video, man. That was incredible content. Go follow these gentlemen. Follow Mike the Cop. Follow Ryan, Breaking Barriers. Follow Nate Sylvester. Make sure y'all get his book. Go pre-order the book. If you forget, just rewind it right to the end where he was telling you how to go get his book. I did the forward in his book, so it's an incredible book, an incredible man. You guys are going to enjoy the book. Also, enjoy my book. My book is available for pre-order right now. It comes out in November the 30th, which is in a long time. But you can pre-order it now. We already ran out of signed copies. I think I was only doing 2,500 signed copies because I don't know how many books I can actually sign reasonably and get them to you on time. So I did 2,500. I may do more a little bit later, but Beating Black and Blue, beatingblackandblue.com is where you get my book. I love you guys. I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.